Welcome to the Valley Girls, the weekly podcast where we explore everything there is to see, do, try, eat, and experience in New York's Hudson Valley by talking to the makers, the doers, the growers, the creators, and all the unique voices of the Hudson Valley. We're telling the Hudson Valley's story one episode at a time. I'm Jenny Leifer, a lifelong Hudson Valley resident. When I'm not co-hosting Valley Girls, you'll find me talking all about health and wellness, finding the best gluten-free eats in the Hudson Valley, and giving back to the community through volunteerism and service.
And I'm Jennifer Santiago, a Hudson Valley native who has spent the past 20 years living in Texas. I'm currently splitting my time between Texas and the Hudson Valley as I'm in the process of moving back, and I'm so excited to explore and rediscover everything I love about the region, including hiking, history, and the local arts scene.
Today, we're taking a deep dive into all the Catskills have to offer. We're talking to Alexa Tamburello of the Catskill Center. Alexa joined the Catskill Center in October 2023 as the volunteer and outreach coordinator. Growing up on a farm in upstate New York, she developed a deep love for the land and all the creatures who inhabit it. After studying environmental science in college, Alexa worked for the National Park Service, where she blended her interests in art and science and developed a love for conservation photography. Since then, Alexa has worked in higher education, PR and communications, photography, and digital strategy. She is also a New York State licensed hiking and camping guide. Alexa, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So, since 1969, the Catskill Center has led the effort to protect the more than 700,000 acres of the Catskill Park and Catskill Forest Preserve. Their mission is to protect and foster the environmental, cultural, and economic well-being of the Catskill region. So I know there are many initiatives that contribute to that mission, but maybe the most visible is the Catskills Visitor Center. I love to follow the Visitor Center on Instagram at catskills.visitor.center. So tell us more about the services that the Visitor Center offers.
Yeah, so the Catskills Visitor Center is located in Mount Tremper, and we offer a variety of services. If you're just stopping by on a random day, we'll always have a staff person there. Right now, we're open 7 days a week from 9:30 to 4, excuse me. And most of our employees are either lifelong Catskills residents or people who've worked in the area for a while, and we all have different backgrounds, so we can offer different types of information. We also do a lot of big Catskill regional events. Upcoming, we have the Great Outdoors Expo, where we'll be celebrating all the environmental, recreational offerings of the Catskills. And we also offer interpretive programming. So on the center's site, we have a 1.5-mile hiking trail. It's ADA accessible, and it approaches our 80-foot fire tower. I don't know how familiar you are with the fire tower history in the Catskills, but the fire tower project has a really rich history, and we were lucky enough to get an example fire tower to put right on site. And we like to bring guests there, walk them up to the top, and tell them about the history. And it's nice because people with strollers or mobility devices can walk right up to the tower too.
So I assume the fire towers, that's a challenge that people can do, right? Climbing all the Catskill fire towers. So these are no longer in use.
Correct. Right? Yep. Yeah. Now mostly the DEC uses drones and satellite imagery and all the fun science stuff.
Well, I, for one, am very excited to hear that. I used to do a lot of the fire towers. I have not yet got to every single one of them, but I have done a lot of them in my past years. Currently, I actually do have a disability and have become, disabled and mobility challenged in recent years. So hearing that you have this ADA accessible trail is just, that's the one thing I tell people all the time, I manage and I'm learning to live with a chronic disability, chronic illness, but knowing that the two things that I always tell people, the two things that I think I can say that I miss the most are skiing and hiking. Those are the two things. And I can take walks. I can take walking sticks or a cane and I can still walk, but things like that, feeling the way that things that I used to do before. So hearing that those things are, and I've seen things like that popping up more and more with rail trails and other accessible spaces, but I just love to hear that. So kudos to Catskill Center. I love that. Thank you. So there are so many other things that the Catskill Center is doing, like Stream Watch and Catskill Regional Invasive Species Partnership, the Catskill Park Coalition. Can you tell us some more about these projects and undertakings?
Yeah, of course. So I work most directly right now with the Catskill Regional Invasive Species Partnership. Basically, New York State's divided into regions in which we manage invasive species, and CRISP, the Catskill Regional Invasive Species Partnership, covers Catskill Park. Um, we work on a variety of projects around invasive species, but our biggest effort goes into early detection and rapid response. So, because we're located so close to New York City, Philadelphia, a lot of major shipping ports, international shipping ports, we're at a really high risk for invasive plants and animals. Um, I'm sure you've heard of like the spotted lanternfly. That's a big one right now, especially in New York and Pennsylvania. So what our staff does is in the summer, we have identified areas that are priority management areas. And we'll send our staff there to work on whatever our outcomes we've developed. So, for example, right now I'm working with a group of volunteers on the Ashokan Rail Trail. And we're doing a 1 acre pilot project where we're removing a bunch of invasive shrubs and replanting native plants. And this is a good opportunity because we're managing the invasive species, but it's also really close to a trailhead. So we get a lot of public interaction too and can explain more about what we're doing. So, Streamwatch is an educational program we offer where we can bring students out of all ages to do different types of data collection in creeks. The Catskills Visitor Center is located right on the Esopus or Esopus Creek, however you want to pronounce it. And on staff, we have an aquatic invasive species manager named Sarah Coney. And a lot of times during some of our big events, we'll have her go out with kids or adults, all ages, and collect macroinvertebrates, examples of different plants you might find in the stream. We bring them back and we can display them in this little cool, like viewing pool table. And I think programs like that are really important because it's easy to hear about these things in like abstract terms and try to learn about them, but when you're actually like in the creek, in the stream, like hands-on learning, um, I think it's especially valuable. So I'm really happy we're able to provide that. I remember growing up in northern Schoharie County. There's the Schoharie Creek is there. I did a lot of that, and that played a big role in me moving into the environmental sciences world. So it's kind of nice to be full circle and leading other young kids in that.
Yeah, how long have you guys been doing that? I know my twins who are now 19, I remember chaperoning a field trip back in elementary school or maybe early middle school where they did that, and they put on the big, is it waders? At first they went into the creek, and then they had the big vats of water, and they were looking at all the different species, and they could take the little tiny ones and put it under the microscope. I'm not sure if that was affiliated or if that was a different group, but,
It
it
might
was
have been.
yeah, it was very, very cool, and I mean, the kids loved it, but you had to see all of the parents, all the chaperones, we were all getting into it. It was wild. It was very, very cool experience.
Yeah, it's amazing what you don't like realize is like right under your feet when
Yes,
you're walking next to a
it was
stream.
fascinating. The kids talked about it for a very long time, so to capture their attention for that long was great.
That's good.
Yeah.
I find that stuff thrilling. But Alexa, I am scandalized. Have we all been saying Esopus wrong this whole time?
I don't know. So I've said Esopus for a long time, and then I was with somebody who is like has been in the area for like 30 years, and he was like, "Well, it's technically Esopus." Um,
Yeah.
I
I
think there is a little. It's one of those. I feel like some terms like there's just some controversy over pronunciation, and I kind of flip flop.
I mean, my mom grew up in Port Ewan. We've been saying Esopus her entire life and my entire life, and now I am shook.
yeah, I
I'm
think I think we'd have to go back to, like, the original, the origin of the word, but or the name, but I think that I have heard it both ways for many years, but I know growing up as well here in Hurley, I've always heard Esopus, and it wasn't until the last maybe, like, 5 or 10 years that I've heard Esopus more frequently, and I always questioned it, like, "Oh, is that the new cool way to say it?" But I think that it may be they're kind of like throwback to actually the original way to say it was Esopus. So,
Maybe.
I'm not
I'm happy
sure.
to stick with the Sopus. That's
I
what I grew
know,
up
I
saying
know,
too.
I know. Esopus kinda sounds kinda funny to me, but
It does, yeah, it doesn't
I
roll off
know,
the
Scandalous.
tongue.
I know. We should look into that research project.
Yeah.
Uh, so I love that you have all these cool initiatives going on, and there is nothing that compares to the thrill of the hands-on discovery. So I'm very grateful for all of these programs. So we recently recorded an episode with our podcasting buddy Matt Zucker. He has a podcast called City It, and we were talking about hiking and kind of like mastering the Catskills. And I said, I'm outsidey. I'm not really outdoorsy. Like, I love to be outside. I love the weather. I love to take pictures of bugs and butterflies and plants, but like, not really rugged. So, what are some of the best ways for us outsidey folks to explore the Catskills? I'm not going to rappel down any cliff faces. Maybe I'll have a trekking pole that's like as rugged as I get. So, what are some of aside from obviously the ADA accessible fire tower, which is so awesome, what are some of the ways that we can like enjoy all the beauty of the Catskills without having to have a high level of skill?
I love that question. And I think if you like being outdoors, then you're outdoorsy. Um, I think a lot in outdoor recreation, there's a lot of, I mean, what we see on the internet, people doing these big hiking treks and rock climbing. And I think a lot of times people think you can only be outdoorsy if you're like doing the most high level, intense stuff. Um, I'm a hiking guide, and I still don't do like incredibly intense hikes all the time. I think what's really unique to our area is we have a lot of retired railroads. And so I see more and more rail trails being built, and I love rail trails. I think um, I visit the Ashokan Rail Trail and the Catskill Scenic Trail probably most often. The Ashokan Rail Trail has a few trailheads between Boyceville and Woodstock. I think there's four total. And each of them has a different offering, and you get really beautiful views of the reservoir and the Catskills in the background. Um, What's nice about that is you get really immersed in nature. You're surrounded by trees, you're surrounded by other people who love being outdoors. But the trail itself is really accessible. I see people with like bikes, wheelchairs, strollers on it all the time. But if you wanted to do something more intense, you could. You could do the entire rail trail, like which is like 11 miles. Um, the Catskill Scenic Trail is another rail trail that goes between, I want to say, Bloomville and Roxbury, so mostly in Delaware County, where I'm from. And that one's nice because it's a community-led effort. So there's the like Catskill Scenic Trail Association, I think it's called. And it's nice because you get people from a variety of backgrounds really coming together to help people get outdoors. And I think that's really special when you're able to like take part in a project like that.
Where can people find if they want, like you said, there's the 4 trailheads, are there certain sites to go to find, people hear a lot about the new Ashokan Rail Trail, especially, like, in the Kingston area. Where can they go to find the different trailheads or the Catskill Scenic Trail, like you said?
So if you go onto the Catskills Visitor Center website, yep, catskillsvisitorcenter.org, and you click on plan your visit, there are a bunch of options for trails in the area and in stuff happening nearby. We have the Ashokan Rail Trail listed there.
Great, and I'm sure people could Google the Catskill Scenic Trail because that's a whole separate thing, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, great.
So Jenny said in your bio that you are a New York State licensed hiking and camping
Yes.
guide. What does that mean exactly? Is that a service that people can take advantage of?
It is, yeah. So the New York State, the Department of Environmental Conservation licenses outdoor guides. You don't legally need a license to guide in New York State, but I think it's helpful if you're looking to get outdoors, finding a licensed guide because in order to get my license, I had to take a few exams. I had to have coursework in like wilderness first aid, um, CPR, AED, and water rescue. So I think it helps when you have someone who's licensed because you know at least they have the background in like emergency planning if necessary.
That is reassuring. I mean, I hope I don't need you to water
I
rescue
hope
me,
so
but it's nice to
too.
know that you
Yeah.
can if I need you.
That's great. So part of your role is as a volunteer coordinator. What are some of the volunteer opportunities and how do we get involved?
So if you go to the Catskills Center website, you'll see under our work, there's a tab for volunteer. Um, we have a number of different volunteer opportunities, including invasive species management, event planning. If you want to work in like science communication, you can volunteer at the Catskills Visitor Center, working with visitors. We have people working behind the scenes, taking photos and helping with social media planning. Um, there's a lot of ways to volunteer with us, and if you a lot of times we'll have students especially reach out saying like I'm looking to get this experience but I don't see a volunteer opportunity. Usually we can find a way to give them that experience. I think volunteering has two roles. One of it is to help us do the work we need to do to protect the Catskills. And then on the other hand, I think it is like an educational tool in itself. We're able to work with students and residents and help them get more involved in the Catskills and conservation in a way that means the most to them.
So you mentioned that one of the volunteer roles is that people who do photography. Also in your bio it said that you have a love for conservation photography. What is that exactly?
Conservation photography, it's basically using photography as a tool to show conservation efforts that are ongoing. And there's a ton of different ways that that plays out. A lot of National Geographic photographers are conservation photographers. They're showing what's going on around the world and the people who are helping to protect the planet. Um, I like using that background with the Catskill Center to show like our ongoing invasive species work. I like going to events and showing like the different types of people we interact with. And also, I like going in the backcountry and taking photos of places that people might not visit. I think that's a big component of conservation photography is really creating an image to show people what they might not be able to go visit themselves. So when we're looking at like the impact of invasive species, people might not see like way out in the backcountry where there are no trails, these trees that are being affected by like the hemlock woolly adelgid or emerald ash borer, but a conservation photographer can go and create images that really kind of pull at the heartstrings of those who view it and convey the message they want.
Well, and speaking of places that people might not go, do you have some areas that you're like, we have this nature area that I can't believe is not more popular, or something that when you tell people about this place exists, people are surprised? Are there some accessible but like off the beaten path kind of Catskills treasures that you wish people knew about?
Oh, yes, definitely. I would say, as a whole, the Western Catskills are really underappreciated in terms of outdoor recreation. I live here, so I'm biased, but it's incredibly beautiful, and you often don't have to fight the same types of crowds that you do in other areas of the
Hmm.
Catskills. Um,
We were talking to Sidiot about that. He was saying, he hasn't, like, the Western Catskills like are a blind spot. He's like, I know that there's Phoenicia, and then that's where the world ends. Like, but what's
yeah.
past that? So,
Yeah, I
yeah.
once actually stayed, in a cabin. We went I mean, this is not exactly camping, but we were camping in a cabin, community. I wanna say Papacton, right? Is that an area like the
Hmm.
Papacton Reservoir? I'm trying to remember the name of the actual town, but I know it was near the Papacton Reservoir, right on like, right by the Delaware, and it was unbelievably gorgeous. I mean, it was just we had the, little creek running right through our like, right by our cabin. It was just so peaceful and just absolutely beautiful, and yes, very quiet, tiny little town with a covered bridge, and just it was so beautiful, and like nobody around. I was so surprised. It was like this little secret place and just absolutely loved it there. So, and it's
Ugh,
not that far from here at all. So yeah.
no, I'm
Yeah.
glad you were able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely beautiful. So we know you love being in nature and hiking and camping and doing photography. What are some of your other Hudson Valley favorites? What are your Hudson Valley greatest hits? Whether it's places you love to eat, local arts, local venues, places to shop, anything you really love in the Hudson Valley.
I'm a big foodie. I think we know there are plenty of amazing restaurants around here, but I think we're also really close to a lot of like farms and like food producers. Again, this is not so much directly in the Hudson Valley, a little bit more into the Catskills, but there are some really great restaurants. In Woodstock, there's a restaurant called Dandelion
Mm,
that's
mhm.
very good. Um,
Even if it's more in the Catskills, that's okay. Get people to explore out of the
yeah,
area a little bit.
in Delhi, there's a restaurant called 80 Main.
Mm,
I
yes.
believe it's a blend of Italian and Argentinian food.
Interesting.
Excellent, amazing quality, and they have one of their kitchens right up at the front window, so you can see your food being prepared before you eat it. Um, and in Andes, there's the Andes Hotel, which was brought back to life over the past couple years, and that's a really special place because, especially since COVID, you have a lot of new faces in the Catskills, and some locals feel like maybe places they knew and loved growing up have kind of been taken over, but I think the Andes Hotel is a really great example of a place that's been brought back to life with the intention of like keeping it as like a local establishment that people love. So you get a blend of visitors, newcomers, people who've been here forever, and the food's excellent and they have great music.
I have heard of that. I have got to
Interesting.
check that out. That's really
Yes,
great.
highly recommend.
I love too that you mentioned the farms
Yes.
and the producers because I love a farm stand. I love a pick your own moment. Do you have any favorites in terms of the farms that you like to visit or farm stands or just the local producers who are putting out great stuff?
Ooh, so my local farm is Berrybrook Farm in Meredith, New York. That's where I get most of my produce. The
Hmm.
Catskills, over in the Western Catskills and Central Catskills, there's the 607 CSA. So it's a collaboration of a bunch of farms and producers coming together. Do you know what a CSA is?
Yes. Mhm.
Hmm.
So
But yes, but you can explain it for listeners who don't.
CSAs are community supported agriculture shares. Essentially, you can purchase a share into this CSA and get produce either weekly or monthly, whatever type of membership you buy. Um, so for me, I purchased a CSA through my local farm, and every week I would stop down to the farmer's market and I got a box, and it was kind of a surprise. So I get to get whatever's in season. Um, it's nice to be able to like chat with them and learn more about how it's grown. But it also, I think, helps me waste less food. I think, especially seeing the person who grew it, if it's sitting on my counter, I'm like, okay, they spent all this time growing that. I can't let it go to waste. Um, and one thing I've noticed that I is new, like over the past couple of years, a lot of CSAs are offering sliding scale memberships. Food inequality is a big issue in a lot of places, not excluding the Catskills. Um, so I think by offering sliding scale memberships, it offers people access to fresh produce if they might not live close to a grocery store or they can't afford like an expensive CSA membership.
Yeah, you're so right about the wasting because I find I myself waste much less when I buy it from the producer. I go to my local farm or buy it from them at the farm stand. Then we had Jenny Estridge, who works at Adams Farrager Farms, was on an episode, and we were talking about it's always the spinach. You buy the spinach with the best of intentions, and then 2 weeks later, you're like, "What stinks in the fridge?" And it's the wet spinach, and I don't do that as much with the produce that I buy. Also, I think a fun thing about the CSA box is it's like a little foodie adventure. Like you might get something that you're not familiar with, and you're like, well, I guess I'm going to figure out now what to do with ramps because I've never cooked these before, but I'm not going to waste these. And so I love that. Also, my local farm, I'll go and they'll have stuff and I say, what do you do with this? And then she'll tell me how she prepares it or share recipes. And so it's a great discovery and it's a great way to appreciate the local produce, much like bringing the kids to the stream and letting them take water samples and look at it under the microscope. You're really seeing, you're understanding your connection to the land and how everything impacts everything else. So I think that's really important.
Another note on the CSA, I used to be involved in one that I had something delivered once a week, and I felt like I was on the Food Network show Chopped, where I would get my box every week and I'd be like, "Well, let's see, what am I cooking this week?" And I'd have to come up with something. So I never knew what I was. Let's see, kids, what are we doing? And we'd open the box and be like, "Well, like apparently this week we're cooking grilled scapes and or whatever it was." So it was a very fun adventure, and it was just very cool to see what was on tap. And even just the whole movement of farm to table, farm to market, all of that. I love to see more and more people getting involved, getting on board with that, and just the community at large really being on board with that is a really great movement in supporting the farms.
I think the Hudson Valley is really good at
Yes,
that and has been for longer than other people have been. Like Gigi, I know was doing that a long
absolutely.
time ago. And Terrapin, if you go to Terrapin in Rhinebeck, they tell you exactly what producers they get all of their ingredients
Yes.
from. And we do that really
There
well
was a
here.
restaurant in Uptown Kingston who has sadly closed this past year, Boydson's. Their menu changed
Mm.
every season because they were also farm to table, but it was based on seasonal, whatever they could get from the farm. So it was also kind of fun. Like they had a couple of the standards, the classic. They had one side of the menu that was always there for people who were like, well, I want the same thing every time I come here. But it was really fun because every time, every few months you'd go there and the other half of the menu would change based on what was available from the local growers and farmers. So yeah, it was really neat.
Also, I have this vision of myself as a forager. When I grow up, I'm going to become a forager. So, is there some good foraging in the Catskills? And I assume that much like the camping and hiking guide, you want to start your foraging adventures with somebody fairly knowledgeable and not just go grab the first mushroom you see and saute it.
Yeah, absolutely to both. In the Catskills, there's certainly great foraging. We all know ramps, I think, ramp season. We just came out of ramp season, and ramps are a plant that grows out of the ground and they have kind of like a leeky, oniony flavor. Um, you definitely want to start with somebody who knows what they're doing, and I don't know what I'm doing. But I'm early on in my foraging journey, I think. I follow this girl on TikTok. Her name is
Oh,
Alexis
is it the
Nicole,
Black
the Black Forager.
Forager?
I love her so
She's
much.
so great. I
Oh
know she's
gosh,
not local, but
no.
she is great. And also, she has amazing stories about the systemic racism involved in why we don't forage anymore, like why we've been conditioned that you have to go to Hannaford and buy your vegetables. It's just not safe to pick things yourself. So, yes, I will put a link to the Black Forager because she's great.
She's
But I'm sorry
amazing.
I interrupted you because I got excited.
No, that's okay. I'm equally excited. And she's also just incredibly entertaining. Like she's an excellent science communicator, I think. And
Yeah.
I believe she has family in Massachusetts. She does record a lot in the Northeast, so a lot of the plants are relevant to around here. Um, there's a big move right now to eat invasive species or use invasive species in food products. And there are mixed opinions about that. I think on one hand, a lot of people think, well, I could get rid of the invasive species if I'm eating it. Um, a lot of people eat Japanese knotweed when it first grows and comes out of the ground. It looks like purple asparagus and it has kind of a rhubarby flavor. Um,
Hmm.
and on the other hand, though, a lot of invasive species experts warn against that because we're giving invasive species kind of like a meaning. And um, with Japanese knotweed, actually, that's happened over the past few years. A lot of honey producers, beekeepers, really like Japanese knotweed because of the honey that is produced by the bees that go to its
Oh.
flowers. So it's a really prolific invasive species, and we want to get rid of it. But there's this like group of people who want to keep it because it makes good honey. So
I love the Catskills and I am very into conservation, but I am not eating spotted lanternflies, just to be clear. I have heard that there are people who are taking advantage of the cicada emergence
Oh,
this
really?
year to make snacks out of them.
Okay, I'll pass on that one.
So.
No, thank you.
Hey, they're gluten free, Jenny.
Yeah, that's all right. I'll stick to my gluten-free pretzels if I want to crunch. Thank you very much. Well, thank you so much, Alexa, for being here, for chatting with us, all things Catskills. We will share links to everything we talked about in the show notes. We'll certainly share for Catskill Center in the show notes and on the website at valleygirlspodcast.com. It was just such a pleasure and really appreciate you being here, Alexa.
Thanks so much. It was great to chat with you both. If you have any questions about the Catskills Visitor Center is a great resource. You can call 7 days a week between 9:30 and 4, and someone will answer the phone. And if we don't know the answer, we'll send you off to the right person.
And I think it's worth mentioning that the Catskill Visitor Center physical property is pretty close to the Phoenicia Diner. Just pro tip there, right?
3 minutes, not that I've counted.
I love it. Thank you for that tip. Thank you to all our listeners. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you'd like to help support the Valley Girls, please follow our podcast from our show page on whichever platform you listen from. Leave a rating and review, and please spread the word and share our podcast with others. We really appreciate your support. To stay up to date with the Valley Girls and for more content, you can find us at valleygirlspodcast.com, and you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Links to all our social media accounts are in the show notes. And you can also connect to them through our homepage at valleygirlspodcast.com. Thank you so much for listening. Bye for now. Bye-bye. The music for this episode is by Robert Burke Warren, entitled Painting a Vast Blue Sky, and can be found on his album Redheaded Friend, available on iTunes and Spotify, and at the link in the show notes.